Good afternoon and a very warm welcome indeed to this afternoon's iOB business webinar. It's a pleasure to have you on here. My name is Ben and I'm the resident business coach here at iOB Business. It is a hot one out there today, so I hope that you're doing all right with the heat, and thank you ever so much for taking the time to join us on today's session. It's a pleasure to have you on here, especially in today's weather. Okay. So right before we get kicked off, we're just waiting for everybody to join. We're just approaching the 2 o'clock mark now. So before we get kicked off, a little bit about how these webinars operate. Once again, my name is Ben, and I do a brief introduction with you just now before we get kicked off for today's webinar. Okay, now if you do have any questions throughout today's webinar, please know that you're more than welcome to ask them at any point, and I'll get them for you in the Q&A session at the end of today's webinar, which we usually run for about 5 minutes or so. Okay. Now, in between each of the 3 core topics we're going to be covering today, same as always, I'm going to give you a moment. We're going to take a break. Use this time as you wish to ask questions and indeed jot down any notes that you might have to ask or note for yourself as well. All right. So let me just get set up for today's session. I will pull up the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and switch off my video camera. So you shouldn't be able to see me anymore, but in just a moment's time, you should be able to see the presentation up on screen. Fantastic. Okay, so if you could do me a big favor right before we get kicked off, please, and just let me know if you can hear my voice okay, and if you can indeed see the presentation up on your screen okay there as well. Okay, wonderful. We've got confirmation on that. Looks like we are ready to rock. Perfect. Okay, so we're at the 2 o'clock mark. A few more people have joined us. Let's get kicked off with today's session. What digital agency clients expect, and just as importantly, what they need. Okay, so we're going to cover 3 core components today. Now, before we begin, who am I? My name is Ben and I'm a business coach. I specialize in working with small businesses, just like many of you on here today, and many of you looking to become small business owners. I help them to achieve stability and growth. This is my goal. This is my passion. This is what I get to do every single day, and it's what I truly love to do. So hopefully you can hear the enthusiasm in my voice throughout today's session, as I enjoy delivering these so much. Okay, so 3 core topics from today. Number 1, a standard. Okay, what digital agency clients expect and what they need. Number 2, a timeline. Number 3, a commitment. Okay, so we're going to talk through each of these 3 core points in detail to establish how you should be looking to run your digital agency if you currently have one, or how you should look to run your digital agency if you are thinking about developing one in the future. Okay, so let's get kicked off with topic number 1, where we're speaking about the standard, a standard of expectation. Okay, now, first point. Digital agency clients expect you to deliver a high standard of service. Okay, now this one you would have thought goes without saying, and I completely agree with you. Hey, Ben, you're stating the obvious. I know. I state the obvious because it is absolutely crucial that we bear this one in mind. If we begin to deliver subpar services to our clients, it should not come as a surprise to us as the digital agency owner that we are starting to lose clients. We're starting to leak income. Okay, now that is never something that we want to do. Now, I get asked all the time as a coach, Ben, how can I improve longevity of my clients? How can I make sure that they stick around just that little bit longer with me? And well, I say, first things first, above all else, above all the high level tips and tricks and expert this and expert that, have you went down to basics? Have you established a strong, consistent, high standard service delivery for your clients? Okay, there is absolutely no question about it. If you begin to deliver subpar service, you will begin to lose clients. Okay, this is never something that we want to do. Now, a great side tip for you here is, if you're looking to consistently deliver a high standard of service, is do something that you can do consistently well. One of the biggest mistakes I see any business make as a coach is they begin to deliver things that they're not completely capable of, and they begin to stress out a little bit. Their time begins to get a little bit latched. They don't really have as much spare time as they used to because they're too busy trying to figure out how to deliver this service that they're not really sure about to a very high standard, which is very difficult to attain because, circling back to the core point, it's not their area of expertise. Okay. Now, Moving on to topic point number 2. This is often discussed in the early stages of your deal and should cover the standards of which you are capable of reaching. Excuse me for one moment. Thank you for that. So this is often discussed in the early stages of your deal and should cover the standards of which you are capable of reaching, okay? So before you begin working with a client, it should always be clarified at which point they can expect their service to be delivered. Now, if this conversation is not had in the early stages, it can begin to cause significant problems down the road, primarily because there is no clarification, there is no standards of expectation. And whilst this may sound like a positive thing, let me assure you, it can impact you very, very negatively, because if no standards are outlined, no sort of achievables are discussed, then that leaves everything open to interpretation, which then means long-term, clients can begin to ask for unreasonable things. Worse yet, they could begin to develop unreasonable expectations because nothing was clarified, no boundaries were set. The understanding of everything has not been clarified. Therefore, how can you expect to meet this mythical high standard of expectations if it's never been clarified before? Okay, so this is often discussed in the early stages of your deal and should cover the standards of which you are capable of reaching. Okay, so very, very, very big point here. Under promise, over deliver. Okay, another crucial mistake that you can make is over promising and under delivering. Now, the reason for that is that you set somebody's expectations so high and you say, look, we're going to do this, this, and this. Now, most of the time, this is done incorrectly to sign the client. Okay, if you promise them the world, they're probably going to get excited. They're probably going to want to put pen to paper with you. Now, the reason I advise against this is because if you outline these unattainable standards, you then find yourself tripping over your own service delivery, trying to deliver to a service standard that was never really possible in the first place, never mind for you, possibly not for other agencies either, okay? So it really does let you down. So go back to the core point, under promise, over deliver. That way, your client will always believe that you're exceeding expectations and it's a win-win situation, okay? During any kind of prospecting phase, we want to be honest, we want to be transparent, we want to be open, we want to make sure the standards are clear and that we're being completely open about what we have. That way, if we do sign the client, it's done in total transparency, everybody's happy, and we've got nothing to worry about. Okay, so this must be clarified ahead of time to avoid confusion between any party. Okay, one of the great big things that I see day to day is confusion between clients and service delivery. Okay, now service delivery is done by you, the business, clients, meaning the people that pay, or the businesses that pay your invoices, okay? They pay those invoices for service delivery. Now, if this happens, if confusion happens, how can it affect you and your business? Okay, well, first of all, it achieves nothing but an array of chaos across the working relationship. There are emails going back and forth, there are various meetings with no specific goals, there's no reporting metrics, there's no growth plan. There is so much left to do that it almost begins to work in a circular pattern between you and your client where nothing's really ever getting done. So you must clarify what standards are, what expectations are, what standards you can achieve before you begin to avoid confusion of any kind between any party. You don't want to be confused about what you're supposed to be delivering. A client doesn't want to be confused about what they're supposed to be receiving. Okay, so make sure you bear that one in mind. Now, once the standard has been set, it's expected that it will be met consistently. Okay, there is no excuse as a digital agency provider to begin dropping standards unless we're making mistakes on our side. Okay, even at that, it's not an excuse, it is indeed a mistake on our side. So you'll see a salient point throughout topic number 1 here. It is absolutely fundamentally crucial that we hit every single achievable for our client where possible. Okay, now what can begin to happen is if we take on too many clients, we start giving our current clients less time. We try and deliver unattainable services, again, sucking our time and our resources and our knowledge and most importantly, possibly here, our energy. Okay, we begin to then drop the quality of our service delivery for current clients, which of course upsets our existing income base in addition to potentially ruining things with future clients as well. Okay, so once a standard has been set, it's expected that it will be met consistently. Now, I'm going to hit pause. Please go ahead and ask away with any questions. Thank you ever so much for that one. I'll get it at the end. And take this time to jot down any notes that you may wish to take as well before I rejoin you again for topic number 2 in just a moment's time. All right, welcome back. So let's move on to topic number 2, a timeline. Okay, what digital agency clients expect, and just as importantly, what they need. Okay, so as digital marketing goes, keeping time is extraordinarily important. Now, of course, you could apply this theory to any business across the board. Keeping time is crucial. Why in particular are we talking about keeping time when it comes to digital agencies here on this webinar today? Okay, we're going to cover that. We're going to cover the list of reasons. Sorry for the anticlimax there. We're going to cover the list of reasons throughout topic number 2. Okay, but the first thing I want you to bear in mind is that if you're somebody who typically isn't great at being on time, or somebody who typically isn't great at managing their own time, this is something that you want to seek to work on, not only for your clients, not only for your business, but also for yourself. Okay, keeping time is a crucial factor in establishing any healthy routine, whether that be personal or business. Now, often in these webinars, we do talk about the power of personal routines and how this can help you run a successful business as well. Okay, but as digital marketing goes, keeping time is extraordinarily important for a whole host of reasons, including keeping time with your clients. Okay, because clients will have their own deadlines to meet and deliver for. So more often than not, as a digital agency owner, you are actually involved in somebody else's project. Okay, now occasionally you might find yourself, or even more than occasionally, depending on the type of client base that you do have, you may find yourself doing service delivery directly for the client. Okay, which most of the time they will have a timeline that they themselves want to meet. So they'll say, within a month, 2 months, 3 months, I want to spend this much money and I want to do it over this amount of platforms and advertising campaigns, etc. And it's very, very important to me that we spend this much money in this amount of time, etc., etc. Okay, so diligence is crucial here. Okay, making sure that you know what you're doing, when you're doing it, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, crucial. Okay, now, secondarily to that, but not any less important, there are times when you may be collaborating with a client, and often they might not even mention this, okay, that there is a collaboration going on between yourself, the client, and their client. So what I mean by this is the client may be outsourcing certain bits of work to you, whether that be graphic design, website design, advertising campaigns, SEO, blog writing, content creation, social media, you name it, okay? As a digital agency, you will have your own niche. Now, the reason keeping timelines is important is because there's a very, very high chance that your client has mentioned a deadline to their client, or at the very least have a deadline that they want to meet for themselves. Okay, now people will put pressure on these types of things for various different reasons. Some people want a campaign to go out by a certain time, say Christmas, for example. Other people may be going away and they want it done before they go. Other people might be working on a project for a client if they've committed to and promised a certain timeline. Okay, it's just very, very, very important to bear in mind that it's not only with ourselves, or even sometimes directly our client that we're serving, we could also be working in a collaboration deal with someone else as well. Okay, so bear this in mind, manage your time effectively, make sure that you keep time for your clients, and you shouldn't find too much difficulty with this one. Okay, so often as an agency, you make up a crucial part of the client's wider team, meaning they need you to operate well as part of their overall machine. Now, if one part of the machine is underperforming, what happens? It begins to create slack for the rest of the machine to pick up. Okay, the same works in a team-based environment. Usually, if you're looking after a client that has more than one person, i.e., it's not just them running the business, they've got multiple departments, multiple areas, multiple marketing employees even, they very much look at you as part of their wider team. Okay, now if this is the case, it's absolutely crucial that you do work the timelines, that you do make sure everybody's happy, that you do deliver things when you said you were going to deliver them. This is what digital agency clients expect, and additionally what they need. Okay, if they're working on a large project, they're taking care of their own client, they're getting something together for their team, for themselves, They want it when they said they were going to need it. Okay. Now, one very important point here is that this does not mean that you should agree to unrealistic timeline. Is say somebody asks you to complete a 50 level advertising campaign, within 3 days. It's just unrealistic. You've probably got other stuff to do. You probably don't have that much spare time. Even if you work round the clock, it's not really something that you can achieve. 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, however, maybe a little bit more realistic. So this doesn't mean by any measure that a client will just say, I need this by next week. And you say, okay, and then you must make that happen. But what is important is that you do choose to negotiate earlier on in the process, even if that potentially risks you losing the deal. Okay. Now, whilst businesses rely on income, you should not be driven by financial decisions. You should be driven by the success overall of your business. If you start to think about the money, you then start to agree to things that cannot happen or that are unrealistic at best. Now, if you fall into this trap, you find yourself trying to keep up with your own business and your business begins to run you. This is one of the many ways that people would define that. If you've ever heard the phrase, your business is running you. Okay, so you need to make sure that you bear in mind you are a part of a wider team, and that if you believe that a deadline is unattainable, say that before the project starts. Okay, it's no good a week or 2 weeks in, you say, look, I'm not going to meet that deadline. I've got too much on. Nobody's going to be happy with that. Okay, so organizing yourself to meet timelines is easy enough so long as you manage your own time efficiently and give realistic deadlines to your clients. Once again, I circle back to the negotiation point. Don't be afraid to tell somebody that that's unrealistic. Don't be afraid to speak about what you believe could happen or should happen. Okay, if somebody's saying that they'll give you a week and you need 3 weeks, tell them that you need 3 weeks. Okay, now if they want to potentially pay extra fees, maybe you could move other things around, maybe you could delay some other clients, but it needs to be looked at as a luxury or as a bonus. It's not a standard expectation that you will move around one client for another. Okay, so organize yourself to meet timelines. It's easy enough, it's stress-free enough, so long as you are clarifying these things early on in the stages when you're looking at the project with the client. All right, so taking another pause now, please do go ahead and fire away with any questions that you have, and indeed take this opportunity to fire away with any notes that you want to take down for yourself. And I'll join you again in just a moment's time for topic number 3. Hello, and welcome back indeed to the third and final topic of today's conversation, a commitment. Okay. Expectations, requirements, needs of digital agency clients. Third, finally, we're talking about a commitment. Okay, so a long-term commitment to serving that client. If you're unsure about whether you'd like to work with them or not, keep the commitment short. Okay, so key principle here. It's pretty standard that whenever you bring on a client, the client will expect to work with you for as long as they see fit. This is pretty standard, and usually it's their decision to leave. Okay, now rarely you may find that if a client is uncooperative or they're just not particularly pleasant to work with, you may choose to let go of them. Okay, but in the early stages of your digital agency business, this isn't something you would typically find most businesses doing, because they begin to rely on the income. Okay, and they want that income to grow, not decrease. Now, for this reason, it's pretty much expected that a long-term commitment will be established with you serving that client. Now, if you are unsure about whether you would like to work with them or not, you can keep the commitment short. You can say, we'll trial it for 2 weeks, trial it for a month, trial it for 3 months even. Okay, but do not commit to long-term work if you do not feel like it's a good fit. Okay, less or even potentially don't commit at all. Okay, it's very, very important, in addition to, yes, fostering a healthy startup process, that you don't start taking on clients just for the sake of it because you want the income. As we said earlier, do your best not to be driven by the financial side. Okay, take care of the clients, take care of your business, and you may see that the financial side starts to take care of itself. Now, in terms of keeping a commitment short, it's more than okay to say to a client in the early stages, can we just work together for 2 weeks? Okay, I just want to see if I can deliver for you. Positioning is everything. You can let them know that actually you just want to confirm that you're going to be able to achieve the standards that they expect. And if not, you'll be paid for your time. No harm, no foul, all done. Okay. you cut the commitment there if it doesn't work out. If it does work out, excellent. Then you can start committing to longer timeframes. Now, your next commitment is to review the work completed for your clients on a regular basis. Okay, we do not want to fall into the habit of delivering and then forgetting. Okay, we want to always be monitoring the standards of work that we're delivering to our clients, because we need to make sure that we're maintaining our own standards. We need to make sure that whatever it is that we're doing is fair, it's reasonable, it's effective for that client. Because if it's not, it's only going to be a matter of time until they decide, actually, you know what, this isn't really worth our time. This isn't really worth our money. I don't feel like this digital agency is giving us their best. Let's see if we can go and find someone else. Okay, so you must review the work completed for your clients on a regular basis. Now, I don't mean go over every single project or task with a microscope. Okay, just make sure that whatever it is that you're delivering makes sense, both financially and time-wise for the client. It adheres to the goals that they laid out, i.e. your campaigns or whatever it is that you're doing, you're achieving the results that you discussed, if that's applicable. Okay, and just make sure from time to time that you're checking over a document to check that it still meets the standards you initially agreed to delivering. Okay, it's good to self-check ourselves in meetings. You know, did we used to do agendas and now we just start to wing it? Or did we used to give comprehensive reports and now we've started to reduce it a little bit because we just don't feel like it's necessary? Okay, this is a very, very slippery slope to fall onto. Okay, so let's try and make sure that we don't do that. Now, the next commitment that you have is a commitment to delivering the highest quality of service that you are capable of. This is both a commitment to yourself, to your business, and indeed also to the client. Okay, if you don't believe that you're truly giving your best every single day, then one would question where your priorities are business-wise. Okay, do you truly care about the growth and success of your business? Do you truly care about a healthy and happy client base that love working with you? Okay, do you truly care about the income that's coming in for you at the end of the month, end of the quarter, end of the year? Because if the answer is yes, then you should be delivering the highest possible standard at all times for your business. Whatever you're capable of delivering, deliver it to your best. Okay, and finally, a commitment to yourself and to your team that you will select your client roster carefully in line with what suits all of you best. So if it's just you, take into consideration the type of client that you'd like to work with and why, and make sure that you keep this in mind whenever you are working with a prospect or looking at bringing somebody new into your business. Once again, try not to be driven purely by money. Try and make sure that you're doing whatever you need to do in order to grow the healthiest, most productive, most successful client base that can help support your business to thrive. Okay, now this becomes even more important as your personal business team, if you like, or your staff or whatever you want to call them, begin to grow. These are people with feelings, emotions, decision-making ability. If they are saying that the client is a bad idea or bad news, it's worth listening to them. Okay, these people, hopefully, they will never care as much as you about your business growth, but they may definitely care about what happens with the business and also what happens with their salary, their income. Okay, so to a certain level, to a certain extent, they will be interested in what goes on with the business. And for those who are in that position potentially of leadership, it's important to listen to them as well. Okay, so bringing us to the end of the webinar, allow us to do a brief recap on the 3 topics that we discussed. Number 1, set your own standard. Okay, the high standards that you want to achieve, make sure that these are clarified with the client before you begin. Adhere to tight timelines. You're not just working always directly for your client, although timelines are still important here. They become even more crucial if you're working on behalf of the client. And finally, don't falter on your own commitment. Okay, your commitment, your word, that's how people look at you. That's how people look at you as a business. If you say one thing and then do another, doesn't look great for you as a business and doesn't help you build your reputation particularly well. Okay, so as always, a massive thank you for taking the time to join us on today's iOB business webinar. It's been an absolute pleasure presenting to you, and I very much hope to see you again on one of these iOB business webinars. Now, if you would like to talk to a member of our team before then, you're more than welcome to head over to iob-business.com/talk-to-us. And on here, you can go ahead and book a call at a time that suits you. So I'm going to leave the calendar up on screen there, so you can go ahead and look at that link, book that link, do your thing. And I will grab the questions that I have from you wonderful people today. First things first, how do I know if the client will be a good fit for my agency? Amazing. Okay, so a few things here. Core values. This is something that is very, very, very important, but something that can be a difficult concept to understand for some businesses. But establish your own core values: empathy, transparency, kindness, these types of things. And if the prospect isn't displaying similar core values, there's a good chance they may not be a good fit. Core values definitely worth looking a bit more into if you're interested. Other things: initial consultations, requested commitments, timelines they expect, etc. So initial consultations, you should get a good feel for whether they are somebody that's going to work well with your business or not. If they are requesting unrealistic commitments, or they want you to have 3 meetings a week, or they need reporting every day, a high maintenance client, in other words, okay, again, this could be an indication they may not be the best client for you. So hopefully that helps. Thank you very much indeed for asking the question. Next question: what if I miss a deadline with a client? Okay, cool. So obviously, as we discussed, in a really, really, really ideal world, you never miss a commitment, but realistically, it may happen from time to time that a deadline becomes unattainable for one reason or another. Communicate this as soon as you possibly can. Don't let it sit. Don't procrastinate on it. I know that many of us do it, but trust me, it only makes it worse. The sooner you can inform the client that there's going to be a delay, the better. Okay, so keep them in the loop, keep them informed. They may not be as upset or as irritated if they find out early on, or as early on as possible, that something isn't going to go necessarily to plan. Okay, hope that answers your question. So let me get a look here and see if there's any other questions that we have for today. No, looks like that is it. Okay, well, as always, I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I very much look forward to speaking with you again on the next iOB business webinar. Take care, and bye for now.